Welcome. Thank you, Tezera. Shout out to the Love Now Media team behind the scenes, keeping us going. But welcome to the kickoff of Love Now Media's month-long conversation series, Lunch and Love, Love Ambassador Edition. In case you didn't know, every Thursday from noon to 1 p.m. this month, we're exploring the resistance of grind culture and living a soft life. And we're doing that through conversations with our incredibly dope 2023 Love Ambassadors. But first, if you're new here, welcome. Okay. Here at Love Now Media, we're on a mission, really, to help create a more just, well, and equitable future. And we're doing that by amplifying acts of love that are at the intersection of social justice, wellness, and equity. So I am Syreeta Martin, Director of Programs and Communications. I have the honor of being in conversation with our love ambassadors every week. And I'm hoping that you'll join me. I know we all got stuff going on, but maybe when you're having your lunch on Thursdays, you're like, oh yeah, Love Now Media got this thing going on. Let me go lunch and love with them. We would love to have you. So feel free to save Thursdays at noon on your calendar because we'll be back every week throughout July. But as far as love ambassadors, right? Like, what is that? It's really simple, actually. They're individuals who lead, learn, and lean into their respective communities with love. They use their influence and their platforms for acts of love that advocate for social justice, for wellness, and/or equity. And so, really, it's just our way of saying, we see you, we celebrate you, and we want to create more space for your light to shine. And so now you all get to help us do that right here in this moment. And I think just even the presence or the response, I should say, to those who have RSVP'd. I saw a lot of Black men who RSVP'd for this conversation and said that they wanted to be in the room, that they were interested in this content. And I think that speaks to how important it is to explore our ideas and thoughts about the soft life, specifically as it relates to Black men. So everyone here is encouraged to not just listen, but to contemplate what a softer life means and looks like for you. And yes, of course, to join the conversation, even if you're watching the playback or you may happen to see this clip on social, you can drop your thoughts, your responses in the comments section. We want to keep this conversation going. It's not just a one and done type of thing. Like I said, this is a month-long Lunch and Love series, the Love Ambassadors Edition, and really just want you to know that your voice is valued. And I would be remiss not to mention that, we are drinking our water and minding our wellness today. Okay. In all of these sessions, we drinking our water, we're minding our wellness, not minding our business. Our wellness is our business. Thursdays at noon, that's what this is all about. And so this conversation is meant to hydrate and nourish you just as much as the lunch that you're hopefully enjoying will. And so with that, said, I do want to present a community agreement that this is a safe, a respectful, and a soft place for us to land today. I don't know what you may have going on in your life or in your day in this very moment, but I really want to invite you to just like take a deep breath, take it in, and exhale to be where your feet are, to be in this moment. This is your soft place to land. And I ask that we taste our words before we feed them to each other. And thank you in advance for doing so. And by continuing to watch this live stream or continuing to be in this room virtually, you're agreeing to that and letting us know that you'll be intentional with your words and with your presence. So, with that said, moving forward, today our Lunch and Love guest is Marquise Richards. Yeah, if I had like all the claps and stuff, we would do that. He is a Black male educator, activist, and content creator. And so with that, Marquise, welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you, love? How you feeling? How's your spirit? All of those good things.
Hey yo, how you doing? I am doing so well. My spirit's feeling very refreshed, rested, renewed. So I'm in a really good space right now. So thank you all for having me. I'm so excited for this conversation.
I love that. Love that. And I have to give credit to Soroya Royster, really good friend and colleague of mine. We usually say, "How you doing?" And
Mhm.
there's kind of a knee-jerk response to how you doing. Oh, I'm good, even if you're not good. And it was actually through her that I learned or really started to practice saying, "How's your spirit?" And I
Yeah.
noticed that it usually brings about a bit of a pause. Like folks actually think like, how is my spirit? Like, wait, let me think about that.
Mhm.
So shout out to her for that. And Marquise, thank you for being intentional in your response. But let's go ahead and jump in.
Mhm.
First and foremost, what do you love about your life right now?
Oh, right now, I'll be honest, like it's summer break for teachers. So right now I'm just like in a space of like freedom and curiosity again. I'm just like, all right, I have time for myself. I'm not like confined to like a schedule right now. And so like
Mm.
I used to struggle with like just sitting my happy behind down and just like sit down and it's okay to rest. And I try to like combat being productive. So now it's like, Marquise, you took your time. You did not take another job over the summer. So just enjoy the rest that you get. And that's where I'm at.
Oh, I definitely we got to dig into that.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, for everyone who's joining, hey Ant, hey Eric, I see some folks joining the room. So thankful you all can join us and sending you all love. Marquise, tell us a little bit about like you, who you are, what you do, the work that you love, how love influences your work, all
Oh
of that.
yeah. Yeah. So Marquise Davon, Marquise Richards, Keys. Don't ever call me Mark. We already know what it is. Nah. So for me, I'm a podcaster, I'm an educator, I'm an activist. And primarily a lot of my platform has always been around like intentional conversations and like spaces like push ourselves as Black men. Um,
So
especially
Syreeta's
like
having a talk back series on.
Ooh, I think we gotta
Sorry about that.
there
Muted.
we go. And I think you it got muted. There
Got
you
muted.
go.
Yep, we're good. We're back. Yeah, so podcaster, educator, content creator, activist. And so like for me, it's been real dope because I always wanted to build my platform off of people being able to feel seen and also be in conversation with each other because I had always believed like conversation leads to like shifts in mentality, shifts in culture, all of that. And so a lot of my stuff is built with love, but like when I talk around love, love also includes like affirmation and accountability in that space too. And so for me, it's always been like, nah, like we can like push ourselves as a community, but like community also requires conflict. Community requires like conflict resolution. It requires us loving on each other and knowing like how to assume the best from each other. And so like for me, it's always been how do I utilize my platform to one, just kind of be like allow people to witness like how do I navigate life and being a little bit more honest around like how I am, but also like we need to push our community to be to be more sustainable, specifically as like the Black community. How can we like sustain ourselves through love and community? And I believe like my politic, the forefront of my politic has always been human decency. And so like how do I create the most amount of space for everybody within our community and making sure that we can all meet each other where we're at?
So hmm, how do you manage to stay present in that work
Mhm.
and not feed into grind culture?
It,
Because if we're talking about educator, being an educator, being an activist, being a content creator, like grind culture is all up in that.
no, these are facts. And I think it's one of the hardest things to balance out. Um, And so like for me, it was, and I'll tell you, like, even in my most recent experience, I'm up at 5:15. I left at 6:45, worked till 4:05, didn't get home till 5:15. So that's already like a 12-hour day, Monday through Friday. And then on top of that, it's like I have to manage a brand and staying consistent on my brand as well, of like podcasting, recording, producing other people's podcasts, going on to other podcasts and stuff. And so like my days would turn into 15, 16 hour long days. And I found myself like becoming irritable more and more and more. And I was just like, oh, this is not sustainable at all. Like I used to be able to do it when I was at home living with my mom for my first year out of college. And so it was just like, great, I can do this job. I don't got to worry about bills. I'm doing this. And so there was like a space where I didn't have as much capacity being taken up, and I didn't have to think around like all the other spaces of life. And so as I moved to Philly, I was on my own. I was like, great, I still want to sustain my podcast. I still want to sustain this content, but I am overworking myself to a space that is like not healthy, because I had always been like, I don't want to work as hard as my mom did. Please don't make me have to work like this hard for as long. And so I wanted to reject that so bad, but I found myself like going into that routine. And so as I started finding myself like going into this routine of like working, because that's what I felt like gave me my worth and people respected that. I then realized like, oh, I had no time to process. I have no time to like chill and take a pause and reset and know that this thing is okay. And so that's when I had realized that I hadn't written in my journal for months. I hadn't like checked in with my body in months, because I was giving myself to everybody else, but I was never like making space for me. And so like it's hard when you're doing human work, because now I'm facing students every single day. Plus I'm an activist, so I'm always thinking around like, what is going on in our community and how can we be better? But then also as a content creator, my platform was an informational space for people. And so it was like having to balance out a physical, digital community and my own personal one too. And there was no space for Marquise in the middle of that. And so once I realized that trying to like combat grind culture meant that I needed to take a step back, chill, relax, and ask myself what kind of lifestyle did I want to live, that's when my shift began. And that took me till I was 26 to get there. And that was only like a year ago, but we're here 2 years ago.
So for you, I mean, what messages do you feel like you were sent, be it from society, from your family? You shared that your mom worked really hard. What messages were you sent about grind culture, and like what was the root of it for you? Like,
yeah, it was my worth. Like it was really like, if I'm not grinding, people will not respect me. And so it had always been like, I have to work 10 times as hard. And like being Black, I already had to do that. And so I went from having to be the compliant child to the golden child to working 10 times hard. I was in top 10 of my class. I had a job since I was 16, managed like extracurriculars. And so like I had always been built like, in order for me to be successful, I need to do all of these things right. And that's what the world told me I needed to do in terms of like getting success. And so it was like messaging from my mom, because I never saw my mom sweat. And so she just like, rest was never modeled for me. And so because of rest not being modeled for me, I thought like I just had to consistently work all the time. And that wasn't fair to me. And I had to start learning like, oh, I really am like overworking in a way that doesn't feel good. And so I had to go back to, well, yeah, so I stopped there, because it was like the messaging was like, here's my worth, here's what I need to do to get successful, to get out of the hood, to then come back and like make something worth of myself to get through college. And that's what my grind culture really started from.
If you feel comfortable, can you kind of give us some context for your family dynamic? Like, are you the oldest, the middle child, the youngest? Like, what? Because that stuff I do feel plays a part in how we internalize the way that we show up in life, and what things we prioritize, and what needs to be done or doesn't.
Yep. So I'm the middle of 5 of a single parent household.
Okay.
Yeah, very much so middle child. But I was the middle child who I wanted attention. And it's funny, I was actually just talking around this with my homie. I was just like, My mom had always said, Marquise, you are the strongest out of your siblings. Like, you're the one who needs the least amount of help from me. And so like, even not having that guidance forced me to have to like be very self-reliant and like really look at like, how do I achieve success a little bit more? So like having to be the one who went to college for the first time, was the first one out of my family to go to college out of all my siblings. And so all of that was just like added pressure. And so for me, I had internalized like, Marquise, you have to make decisions for yourself. You do not ask for help. You do not let people see you sweat. You do not do this. You just have to do everything you need to do in order to achieve success and whatever that looks like. And so for me, I struggled, like this grind culture forced me to be a little bit more self-reliant. So I still struggle to this day with like asking for help or asking for people's advice on things, because I'm just like, this isn't normal and I don't know how this is supposed to respond, and I don't know if I trust you to get it right. But I'm learning to like be able to put my trust in other people and realize like, oh no, it is okay for people to show up for you and it's okay to ask for help. But it's just a habit I have to unlearn, because I was so used to not doing that or feeling like I could do that, because I had to always have the answer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I 100% empathize and also just identify with the unlearning. I feel like that's a phase or stage of life that I'm deep in right now. It's like a lot of unlearning and seeing the rise of this like soft life movement, you know, as we come out of the pandemic. It has impacted, like, I don't know, I feel like, you know, we all were forced in a lot of ways to sit down for 3 years of our lives and to sit with some really hard truths uh, about society, about ourselves, about the way that our lives work. And coming out of that with whatever we discovered, there is this almost like, I feel like a push or a need to reimagine and redesign, like, wait, what does my life look like? How do I function? How am I showing up? And like, what did I adopt in survival mode that I actually don't need anymore?
Oh.
Because I'm not in survival mode anymore, or my life doesn't look like what it looked like when I needed to be this thing. How much of who I am is who I had to become?
Yeah.
And that, child,
Yo.
please sip my water, hold on.
That part.
A lot of unlearning, y'all. So
Yeah.
I feel you with the unlearning, and I'm just curious to know, especially as it relates to the soft life and being a Black man, being a Black male educator, like all of these different layers of your identity. What have been some of the hardest things to unlearn in reaching for or leaning into a softer life?
I think one of the hardest things to unlearn for me was like not equating my worth to my work. Like, my work became my identity a lot of the time. And I realized like there was no way for me to like compartmentalize, like, this is Mr. Richards, this is Marquise, this is Marquise Davon. Like, these are separate entities. And so I actually found myself like working a lot more. And so the idea of rest felt foreign to me in terms of like productivity. And I was just like, no, in order to be successful, like, I have to like be the hardest working, I have to be the smartest in the room, I have to do this. And these are all like things that I had like set for myself. And so even as a kid, I was like, I can't get anything below an A. Like, if I get anything below an A, like, I'm gonna mess up, I'm gonna fail. Like, but like those pieces of like making mistakes and realizing mistakes aren't fatal, those moments of like not tying my worth into my productivity either is hard, because our jobs require us to do this. And so one thing for me is like, I had to start putting joy at the forefront of like everything that I did. And that was like just modeling that for my students. Like I was like, yeah, on a regular basis, I'm a fun person. Like I swear I'm not always like in my head. And so I always wanted to ensure like people were smiling and people were okay. And so I made it like a politic of mine to make sure like before we get into like the hardness of the work and before we get into all of this, like what made you smile today? Like I just had to ask that question and start reframing my day of just like there are bad moments, but not fully bad days. And so I always say like, how you living? What made you smile? Recognizing the things that I needed in those moments, especially like virtually. So those were some of the things I had to unlearn. It was like not tying my worth into my productivity and my job and knowing how to compartmentalize those two pieces. Because if I'm sending the same message that my mom sent to me, whether intentionally or unintentionally, right? Because circumstances are what they were.
Yeah.
I didn't want my kids, especially me being a Black male educator, there's not many of us in that space. And so like, I wanted them to also see like, oh no, you can have joy, you can smile, you can have fun. And so I always tell the story around like one of my kids said, you're kind of like an Erykah Badu type of Black guy. Like you're always asking like what's on your spirit and how you living and just like, you're so like emotional. But I teach like social emotional learning too. So I'm just like, this is all.
Thank you.
Yes.
We need
But
that.
all of that like encompassed into one. And so like if I'm telling kids how to like regulate their emotions and identify like triggers, trusted adults, trusted friends, like all that good stuff, I also need to like practice what I'm preaching. And so it evolved as like I'm teaching all of these kids, but for them, it was unique for them to experience me because I'm not the typical Black guy that they would see being fed to them in media. And so for them to see me like enjoying music, they'll always see like the art in the background. They'll see the record player. They'll see I had a different book every single day. They see me drink my coffee. So they're all just like, oh, I don't know how to pin you down, but like I enjoy it. So like a lot of it was just like modeling to unlearn and just like letting kids into understanding like who I am as a whole and not just like your instructor. And so I allowed what I had to learn was like be all of me in all spaces that I'm in too.
Ooh, that's a
It's
real
hard.
thing.
But yeah.
No, but I love that modeling to unlearn. Some might interpret that, oh, fake it until you make it. That feels a bit different to me as far as like modeling it.
Yeah.
With the purpose of like, no, I'm doing this to unlearn what was ingrained in me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like a practice too. Like you do it more and more, and it's not faking it because I'm like, I am being my authentic self, but it is a matter of like getting comfortable with being your authentic self in those spaces. And I think we struggle with that as Black people. I struggle with it as a Black man of just like being an educator, like we're also in like a naturally nurturing position that people are like, oh, I'm so used to you being a disciplinary. And I'm just like, did I do something to bother you? How are you feeling in this moment? What do you need from me? Do you need a walk? Like, and I have to like own the stuff that I do too. And so like when I can model that, I think it gives other kids permission to like explore, like do like emotional exploration, but also other Black people to like witness that too. It gives them the opportunity to be able to say, when you did this, I felt this, and now I need this. Or when I feel this, I need this thing. And so it takes a little bit, but I was like, if I'm gonna need to like practice this, shout out to therapy. They're also gonna see like what it can look like in practice. Because I think we talk about it a lot, but we never witness what it looks like because sometimes it's too like personal for us to share out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just shouted out therapy, and I was kind of, my mind was going to soft life and how we define it, because I don't know that we all have that everybody's operating from the same definition. I don't even know that that necessarily needs to be the case. I think generally when we think of soft life, it's pampering yourself and, you know, just relaxed and at peace at home all day. And, you know, there may be a certain image that comes to mind when we think soft life. And I know personally, I see soft life largely discussed among are targeted towards women or women identifying, and I don't see a lot of men, specifically Black men, um, that where there's space held for
Mhm.
Black men or for men in the soft life. So I'm curious to know, how do you define the soft life, and what does that look like for you? How do you imagine that or envision that to look like for you?
Yeah. So the soft life, it's like, it's super interesting because I think sometimes people, I'll preface it with this. I think people conflate the soft life with like living a life of luxury as well. And
Mm,
so oftentimes we start seeing like the Black girl luxury space, and then the soft life is also there. So there feels like there's an economic component to the soft life of like, in order to achieve this, I need to make X amount of money. But for me, I was like, I don't make that much money, so I need to like figure out what the soft life looks like for me. So I had during the pandemic, like what really helped me was like, what does my inner child need to feel soft again? And I think it's hard for Black men to experience the soft life because being called soft has always been a, a negative for us. And so we associate softness with femininity, being gentle, being nurturing. All of this stuff is just like, this ain't normal. I don't know how to do this.
mhm,
Um, so for me, when I envision the soft life, I define it as a moment of finding balance that is like overcorrecting what we've been told our entire lives. And so the soft life is an opportunity for me to just sit down and feed and nourish my inner child, and whatever way that looks like for me. And so, though ultimately, I would love to be able to like take a trip and like get on a plane and leave whenever I want to like indulge in this piece. However, I know I don't have that money to do that right away, right now. So right now, what the soft life looks like for me is getting up in the morning and giving myself 30 minutes to like indulge in self. So I always tell everybody I do my 10 minutes of reading, 10 minutes of journaling, 10 minutes of coffee, and walking outside or sitting outside and listening to a podcast or something. And so like these are all moments that are like very specific times for me to just like have control over my day before like the rest of the world needs you to do something.
yeah,
And so that's where it's at for me right now. And then like reading fantasy books again and watching anime again and like
mhm,
listening to music and discovering new music. All of that stuff feels like I can accomplish that soft life because like these are moments for me that are not expected. The work is expected from me, the showing up for other people is expected from me, but like the soft life is, how am I showing up for myself? And I
yeah,
think that's the space of finding my work life balance too. I said I actually like left my current job as a teacher because I wasn't achieving that balance anymore. It was too much of like time and human capacity that I just did not have right now. And I was overworking myself. And so I was just like, I need to get back to finding that happiness and that balance of creating and loving my love of theater again and reading for pleasure and not always have to be on, um, while also like looking for a job that will help me out with that lifestyle a little bit more, whether it's hybrid, whether it's contract or remote. But I need something that allows me to like enter that space because I want more time for family. I want more time for to cultivate my close friendships and relationships and stuff. And I just didn't find myself having enough time for that or having enough money in order to like achieve that stuff yet. So
got
yeah.
you. Got you. For loves who are tuned in or in the room, feel free to drop in the comments like how do you define soft life?
Mhm.
What does that look like for you? Like we here to imagine together. And I definitely want to be intentional in using this time and space to think about that. Like I said, this is your soft place to land. So what better time
Yeah.
to think about, okay, what does a softer life look like for me? And Marquise, I'm so glad you brought up. Hold on, let me grab something. I'm so you like I really appreciate you bringing up the inner child because I feel like that has been a lot of what me leaning into the soft life looks like. It's funny, I went and got my nails done, you know, little nails there.
You better look good. Come on.
I got them done yesterday, and she was like, you've been getting a lot of sparkles and glitter and this and that. And I just like chuckled inside because it's been bringing me joy. Like I love looking at my nails and seeing
Yeah.
all these colors and things. And I was like, I have. But it's like little stuff like that. At least little stuff to me like that, like being able to see glitter on my nails. And I remember being a kid, and that was something that brought me joy. But also when I was a kid, I loved Barbies. Okay, y'all.
You gonna see the Barbie movie?
Listen, it was obsession. Okay, I had Barbie everything.
Yeah.
My mom made jokes. She actually just told me recently, Syreeta, you imagine the life that you're living. You used to play Barbies, and this is what you would imagine for yourself. Like you manifested this, and I didn't even realize that. But one of the things I recently did after I went to go see The Little Mermaid was I bought the Barbie. And I was when I tell you I was in the store just cheesing from ear to ear, and I walked out with my Barbies.
Yes.
And as I'm checking out, the woman who was checking me out, she was like, "Oh, you got the Barbie?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Who's it for?" And I was like, "Me." She was like, "Oh my gosh, you bought a Barbie for yourself?" And I was like, "Yeah, I honestly, I used to love Barbies, and I just want it. I'm gonna get it." And she was like, "Yo, I used to love Barbies, and I like there have been Barbies I've seen, and I just felt like I was too old and this and that." She was like, "I never thought to still buy myself Barbies." And I was like, "Listen, sis, I'm joyful, so if it's gonna bring you joy, don't deny yourself. Like tap into your inner child." So I really appreciate, because I didn't make that connection, that me leaning into the soft life is me leaning into my inner kid, and like and creating space for an inner child. That's powerful for me. So thank you for that.
No, I'm with you on that.
I see some comments coming in as far as what folks are envisioning for their soft life. Marquise, if it's okay, I want to just give voice to a few of those. So Troy said, "No Sunday night butterflies or thoughts of I hate this job, capturing the essence of being unbothered, practicing daily self-care through yoga and being in solitude, keeping boundaries and just being at peace." Yes, peace. Ayana, soft life looks like giving myself the time to be conscious of my decisions. I think our society is rushing all the time. So my soft life is intentionally slowing down and choosing my day-to-day decisions from a patient and still place. Ooh, slowing it down. Absolutely. Rose, I think having a soft life for me is having the opportunity to choose. I can choose to work or not to work. I can choose to go out and be social or stay in and be to myself. Is listening to my inner wisdom and asking what I need and not worrying about what I have to do based on societal pressures. Oh,
Yo.
Go ahead.
So for me, I am now in a space, I'm telling myself now, I'm no longer in a space of like trade-offs anymore. I'm in a space of choices. And it is like so wild because I was just like, oh, I have a time to choose my decisions. Like these last couple of years felt like it was just like snowball after snowball after snowball after snowball. And like I just had to make things very limited in terms of like my choices. And I was just like, oh, well, if I do this, I can't do this anymore. And if I do this, I can't do this. If I spend this, I won't be able to do this. And I finally feel like I got to a space where I have choices. And like to enter that space and like knowing like you feel like you're not losing anything for now having these choices feels like I am like slowly but surely like getting to the soft life that I would like ideally want. And so like to hear people talk around like choice of when you want to work, choice of what this thing looks like, choice of how often you're going to do this, and being conscious to like sit down with those decisions you make, that is a different level of like softness and pleasure and like happiness that I thoroughly appreciate. So like I love the answers that like just came through too.
Yeah. Shout out to Blue Taluzma, because one of the things she put me onto was do not make decisions in a fog. And fog
Mm,
stands for fear, obligation, or guilt. So if when you go to make a, when you're contemplating, am I going to do this? Am I going to go to this event? Am I going to, you know what I mean? Whatever it may be, if you are making that decision in a fog, pause, wait.
hmm
It's not time to make the decision yet, because you don't want to make decisions, or at least what she shared is like, it's not healthy to make decisions out of fear, out of a sense of obligation, or out of guilt. And
Right.
I appreciated that, because that kind of gave me even a kind of a checkpoint of like, wait, am I about to do this because I genuinely want to do this? Because
Yeah.
I genuinely am joyful about doing this, or it's truly important to me, or is this coming from a sense of fear, obligation, or guilt? And that has really helped me with time management, with time ownership, all of those things. It's and like being a good steward of my energy. Garen, he said, I personally don't like the phrase soft life. For me, it implies imbalance and an overflow in the direction of leisure. However, one of the first things Marquise mentioned in his definition was balance. So I agree with the need for balance, but I guess we all have to define what it looks like and how we identify that thing. For me, I'll probably never identify that balance as a soft life. Sometimes I'm at rest and sometimes I'm on an intense grind mode. It's a pendulum swing that doesn't fit so neatly into the phrase soft life. And I personally appreciate that. Marquise, definitely want your thoughts on this. Um, I think just in society in general, we tend to operate in extremes.
Oh yeah.
It's either this or this. There is no in between. And like, that is just not realistic to me.
Yeah.
That's not sustainable. And so I feel what Garen is saying is like, okay, if it's not grind mode, then it's soft life. And now we're all the way on the other side of it.
Right.
And yeah, no.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that push too, right? Because there is I want people to like also recognize like the soft life, when I think about it, it is like an overcorrection of like what capitalism told us to do, is like consistently work, 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 work. Like there is no time for like rest, right? And so I'm thinking around like how South America, you have siestas. When you go abroad to like Sweden, they have ficas. These are all words that imply rest and like community and like chill in the middle of your workday. And so when I think around like grind culture and the soft life, it is a little bit of like a pendulum swing, but I do feel like elements of the soft life will give you the balance to your grind, because we all know like there are going to be times where you right? Maybe I do have to spend this week of like buckling down and just doing everything I need to do before I go on this vacation, right? Like that's the reality. I got to overwork so I can like relax and know that everything's in place. And so, yeah, there is like somewhat of a balance, but I think when I think around the soft life, it's like a softer lifestyle. And so, like, I think that allows us to actually critically engage. All right, am I working too hard? Is my body trying to tell me something? Am I ignoring my body? Am I like overworking and not like creating time for rest? So I think the soft life just means you have intentional time to make space for you and not have to depend on anybody else to do this, or not have to depend on your work. And so I hope that kind of provides like a better scope of it, because I do think like people see soft life and they're just like, oh, y'all just want to be lazy again. I actually think it's not like us wanting to be lazy, but I think it's us being understanding, like especially through the pandemic, like y'all told us we had to be working this hard the entire time. Come to find out, I actually like to have time with my family. I like to have time for myself. I like to relax. I just haven't had the time because I felt the need to earn my relaxation. I couldn't just have my relaxation. And so, like, I think once we start to unlearn, like, I have to earn this thing. And that's also like not applicable to everybody, right? Like, there are some people who do not have a lot of choices. So I need to work every day in order to make ends meet. But I know like I have a salary, so I'm making the same thing all the time. I have PTO, right? And so I witness like other people who don't have like those specific privileges. And
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, I'm watching all of my siblings like work hella hard over the summer. And I'm like, I'm still getting paid. I don't gotta work. Like I get paid over the summer. And so like, I think there are some aspects to it that we can talk about from a socioeconomic status as well. Some of us can't afford to relax and rest because we have a lot of responsibilities and not enough access and support or resources to allow us to be our fullest selves either. And so I think like that's the other piece of like, I love the romanticized version of the soft life, but then when you put it into like actual practice, it's going to look different for everybody. So for me, I'm like, I'm not living a life of luxury, but I am living a soft life, which allows me to like just make intentional decisions at least for an hour of my day for
Yeah.
me. And so that's how I want to make sure like this is still like accessible language for everybody to like put into practice, and not assuming like a plane ride out whenever I feel like it is a soft life. That's a luxury to have. But can I make the soft life within my room? Can I make the soft life within my living room or space for me in order to like engage in this piece? I think that's the other aspect that I always think around in terms of like people who have to grind, people who have choices, and people who can like live that life of luxury, because that's where necessity stops. Now I can just like do the extra stuff.
Yeah, no, because I think about, I was a young mom, so I think about being a single mother of two in college and going to school full time and working three part-time jobs, and even with all of that, still, being on welfare, and then, graduating and eventually having to make the move, or really it was a blessing of being able to access the Philadelphia Housing Authority, right, and have housing security and all of that. This how I would have defined a soft life then for that version of me is very different from where I'm at now, right? There it was grind mode at that point in time, because I was in like, we got to survive. I have kids to provide for. What I do appreciate, and I think in many ways it looked like it was the kind of laying the ground for the soft life that I would live, was being intentional about taking time to journal, was being intentional about like when my moments, when I had my me moments, it was like, I'm here. I am present for
Yeah.
myself. I'm going to, if I'm going out with my friends, I want to be fully present in that and have fun. Soft life looked like being intentional about my quality of presence,
Yeah. That was
with
good.
myself and with the people who refilled my cup, right? And it still is the case now, but there's much more autonomy in my time. There's much more autonomy in what kind of work I do and who I'm working with, who I'm in partnership with. Those things, there are things that have changed, that largely changed because of the grind that I was on. But there was a point where the grind was no longer sustainable. I was going to burn completely out, and I did, and more than once.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think like I really appreciate, what you have just spoken to, and also what Karen shared, because there is room for nuance. And I think we do have to be mindful of the pendulum and making sure that while we're fully taking advantage of this opportunity to have a larger discussion and to um, push humanity forward, and like prioritizing our wellness, and rejecting the fact that like, wait, it didn't have to be like that though.
Right.
How life was, it actually didn't have to be like that.
Truly.
That's important. That's very important. But I'm looking at the time, and want to make sure we don't get too far off base. So for you, Marquise, how has the embrace or the leaning into a softer version of yourself impacted the way that you show up in your life, show up for your community, show up in the way that you work?
Yeah. Yeah. So like embracing this softness nurtured a lot of my relationships. honestly and truly. And so like I believe like grind culture has always been like super individualistic. The soft life has actually made me value my community so much more, value my body more, value my rest a lot more. Because I always am scared to like work so hard in life that I miss out on everything else. And so I want to ensure like when I do the work that I do, it's always like intentional, it's checking in, it's navigating stuff that's wild, uncomfortable. Like that has all given me the space to like have time to think and be present and understand my impact on other people, their impact on me, but also understanding like how I show up genuinely gives other people permission, and particularly it gives Black men permission. And that has been like one of the coolest things to witness of just like, yo, Keith, I appreciate you just sharing this thing or being honest or doing your Hey Black Man series. Like it is like an open diary for people to kind of see like, I don't always have the answers to everything. I can't have the answers to everything, but we're all just trying to navigate. So embracing the soft life gave me a better way to check in. Helps me give grace to other people, but it also allows me to be a lot more intentional with my community and how I'm showing up.
You have a phrase, be gentle, Black man.
Yes.
Tell us, like, what is that about?
Yeah, it's it's so important because I feel like as I always remember like as a kid, I feel like as Black boys, we are not allowed to be gentle. And that like gentleness is bullied out of us, whether it's our parents, whether it's the society around us, whether it's our peers. And so it's just a constant reminder of like, it's okay to be gentle. It's okay to be intimate with yourself, with your boys, and being intentional around that. So I always want Black men to remind themselves like being hard does not have to be the default status for all of us, because that's actually not humane. Like we were never born to be alone and stoic and all of that. So it's just a consistent reminder for Black men to know, and Black boys to, it's okay to do this. It's okay to be this way. It's okay to embrace your gentleness when you need to embrace your gentleness, because that's also part of us. And so if we don't embrace that, our body will let us know, and our reactions will show whether we're lashing out, whether our emotions, whether they're negative emotions and we don't know how to experience them. I always fear like us internalizing so much that we don't have a healthy outlet. And sometimes the healthy outlet is embracing like those gentle parts of ourselves that also need to be nurtured.
Yeah. So what do you love most about the community you serve right now? And specifically Black men, Black boys, like what do you love most about your community?
Oh, the embracing of curiosity. It is so much fun. Like, when they're just like, yeah, how'd you get here? Marquise, like, what is going on? And so like that embrace of like, I want to be able to like navigate these things, or I want to try this thing out because you kind of like just posted about it. And so like for that has been beautiful, but I think it's also like the gratitude that we have all been sharing with each other in my community. And that part for me has been interesting in terms of watching Black queer men and Black femmes and Black men and Black straight men and like everybody around of all different walks of life feel safe in my community to be able to show up as their best selves. And so like that to me has been one of the best pieces, because I'm like, there's so many like differently identifying Black men within my community that to see them all in a room together and embracing each other and loving on each other and giving each other permission to hug each other, and like not like a little quick like pat on the back like a church pat, like it's a 7-second embrace to release some endorphins, like that to me has been one of the coolest things of like that brotherhood, that friendship being on display in such like a nuanced community that sometimes we don't see together all the time. So that's one thing I thoroughly appreciate around my specific community.
Yeah. So from where you sit now, what does this community that you love so much stand to gain by potentially embracing or exploring a softer life? And what challenges are maybe preventing or stifling that from happening?
Yeah, some things to gain are a longer life, a more fulfilled life. One of the scariest statistics to me are like Black men are increasingly we're the highest demographic to commit suicide or unalive ourselves. And for me, that like worries me, especially like Black kids from ages 14 to like 26 are most likely to do it. And so like for me, I want us to be able to like live a longer life, but I think also embracing the soft life will also go to like my ultimate thing is like harm reduction within our community. So I do think like us being able to embrace a softness about us also means harm reduction, less intimate partner violence, because now we feel like there are safe spaces for us to be able to just be and not have to resent those closest to us because of what the rest of the world tells us, which goes into like some of the limitations are like people don't know how to embrace Black men who are gentle, Black boys who want to be softer. And so like everybody has to do this work, because once we see a Black man decide that he wants to be soft or like show his emotions, we're just like, nah, that sucks, bro. Nah, that's fake, bro. Like, nah, you can't do that. Like, it's uncomfortable for everybody. And so like that is a lot of the pressure that we face, because as Black men, we're reduced to sex, money, power, providing in a very particular kind of way. And so when you're able to like embrace all of you, it's beauty on the other side of it. There's more life on the other side of it, but it also is going to challenge everybody to be accountable to, did I shut this Black boy down? Did I cause harm in this way? Did we cause harm to each other as Black men? And so like it requires everybody to be intentional around our participation in patriarchy, and more specifically like how race and patriarchy interact specifically upon Black men. And so I think that's the part that to me is hard, because in us wanting to affirm the rest of our humanity, that requires us to be accountable to each other, but also requires everybody to be accountable to their own actions too, which I don't know if we got there just yet.
I as you were speaking, like what was coming to me was like the fullness of your humanity. I know it's going to continue to be an ongoing conversation of like soft life versus grind mode and the balance in between. And I think like at the root of it is really the focus here, and what the striving, the reaching is for, is the fullness of one's humanity. That it's not so much of the extremes. And maybe it's not even that we have to swing the pendulum and go fully soft life luxury and this and that, but that there's space created for the fullness of our humanity, for the softer versions of ourselves, for the versions that are motivated and determined and strategic and you know, like all of those things, but that it doesn't have to be one or the other, for capitalistic gain or for, you know, all of these other layers. Like, but where's the you in all of that?
Yeah.
You and all of that. It's about the balance and the integration of all of the parts of yourselves into your life on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, wanting to close this out. I know the chat has been popping. Shout out to y'all. Okay. I gotta catch up on this, but I'm seeing grace and really great conversation happening. So appreciate everyone who's number one, honoring the community agreements, but number two, really just bringing love and a genuine desire to connect to the space. Marquise, for you, curious to know, what is your hope for your future self and for your community?
Ooh, my hope for my future self. Oh, that's good. To live a life fulfilled is my hope for my future self. I want to make sure that I'm still like creating impact and a positive impact on my community, but also like living my wild dreams. So like, I know I want to like own a bookstore by the time I'm 35. I know I want to publish a book by the time I'm 30. So I want to like I still have all of these dreams. And so I want to make sure my life feels fulfilled, and I'm not living in a life of like, oh, I wish I could have did this. I don't want to end my life like that. And I think for my community, it is building community again, to be honest. I fear like a lot of our hesitancy around each other and our lack of conflict resolution has been like a community divided for so long. And so like I worry that if we don't get to know our neighbors again, that we're not going to achieve like this communal gain and this communal like idea, because we're so scared of each other right now. And so like my biggest urge for our community to do is like go out and meet your neighbors. I know Mr. Jim, I know Miss Sheila, I know Darren down the street, the people at the bodega, and like I learned my block again. And that's something I grew up around, like just knowing my block. So I hope that our community begins to know our block and assumes the best within each other in whatever safety capacities that looks like. But I think once we do that, we're going to be such a tighter community and a happier community overall.
Got you. And I see one question that just came in, and Eric, I'll definitely keep this in mind for future conversations, but he asked, or he said, thoughts next time about knowing when to put stuff down for your own mental health when it comes to dreams versus what is necessary at that time. So Marquise, if you have like maybe 30 seconds to drop something there for him.
Yeah. So knowing when to put stuff down for your own mental health when it comes to dreams, it is, are you still like enjoying this thing? Right. And so I know like there was so much that I wanted to do, but in an era right now, I was just like, all right, I'm trying to manage all of these podcasts. Which one is most important right now? And which one is like sustainable for me? So maybe it's not even putting stuff down, but it's reorienting the amount of time that this thing takes. And then versus what is necessary at the time. Chad, I hate doing administrative work. It's the worst, but I got to sit down every Sunday to send out any emails, reply to any emails, do all that good stuff. And so it is really understanding, like, understand your capacity, what you are able to do, what you can ask for help on, and then you'll be able to like alleviate a lot more. But it is a difficult balance at times, because you don't want to, if you're to the point where your mental is more negative and you're experiencing more negative emotions than positive emotions with your stuff, take a break and reset. There's always power in a good reset and a good pivot.
Love it. Love it. I think that is a great note to come to a close on. Shout out to all of you all for joining us for the kickoff to our Lunch and Love Ambassador Edition. This again is happening all throughout the month of July, every Thursday, noon to 1 p.m. We are right here virtually, sipping our water, minding our wellness, nourishing our minds, bodies, and souls, all of that good stuff. We actually have this set up where you can RSVP on Eventbrite, so we know who's coming and can really just do our best to prepare for you. So please make sure you take a look at the dates for the rest of this month. I dropped the link in the chat, but you can go to lovenowmedia.com as well and access it there to look at our upcoming dates and our love ambassadors that are going to be joining us. So July 13th, Soraya Nicole, she's a performing vocalist and spoken word artist. We're going to be chatting with her. July 20th, Delacroix, who is a recording artist, is coming through. And then July 27th, we're closing it out with Tiffany Taveras, who is the Senior Vice President of Diverse Segments, Representation, and Inclusion within Technology's Diversity, Community, and Sustainability organization at Wells Fargo. Honey, that's a mouthful right there. I can't wait to hear how she introduces herself on the daily, because I gotta drink some water after that. But I'm super excited to speak with each of our love ambassadors. And Marquise, please, really quick, let folks know where they can find you, follow you, connect with you, all of that.
No problem. Yeah, you can follow me. All social media is at Marquise Davon. I'll put it in the chat. That's MarquiseDavon. That's all social media. You'll find me in the Twitter streets for as long as they're still alive. Or you can follow me on YouTube at Marquise Davon Productions, so you can see my show Keeping It a Bean, where I talk pop culture, politics, culture, all over a cup of coffee. So feel free to join me on there too.
All right, that is a wrap, y'all. Make sure you follow at Love Now Media to stay tuned for all the things that we have popping. There are some great things coming down the pipeline, especially with our young professional storytellers. They got a lot going on this summer, so we can't wait for you to learn more about that. And also, Marquise, just so y'all know, he's actually featured on our podcast, Heart to Heart. Shout out to Journey Moses, who is one of our young professional storytellers, and Josh Duncan Ashe. Y'all know Josh, big boss, okay? They co-hosted the last season of Heart to Heart, and Marquise was one of the guests there. And that really kind of opened the door to him becoming a love ambassador, because we really got to just take a deep dive into his work and to his mindset and his love for community, and was like, yeah, no, he is a love ambassador. So super, super thankful for you joining us and for you just continuing to be in community and build with us. We love you. We celebrate you. And thank you, thank you, thank you. And with that, y'all, this is a wrap. We will see you. Have a wonderful day. Close out your week strong and take love with you, in you, wherever and everywhere that you go. Peace.